I really think that back in my day, I think we were much better tacklers than these guys are now. But a lot of that's probably attributed to them playing the game out so much out in space. So, um, I don't know the game. They're trying to clean up the game a little bit, with the head injuries and the. But honestly, Tim, I don't think you can ever clean up football totally because you just can't get your head out of the way sometime. That's just the way the nature of the game is. And they've done a pretty good job, I think, of trying to teach kids to tackle differently. And I hope they're doing that on the younger levels now than when they were. Because, back in my day, we were taught to, stick that forehead right between the numbers, and keep your head up and don't drop your head. But now it seems like if you watch the way a lot of guys tackle, they do drop their head, but they lead with their shoulder more. So that's probably a good thing, but I just don't know that you're ever going to be able to clean up the game of football totally.
Well, it's always been an interesting dichotomy for me because violence in football is what we all love about it. I mean, if we get
Yeah,
down to it, you know what I mean? It just
yeah,
we are attracted to that. I think men especially, right? But I think just
yeah,
people in general, there's something in the back of our skeleton there in the back of the brain. And then to say that things are too violent or dangerous, and then I understand all the CTE stuff was involved in the whole deal. It's just a tough balance, I think, in a lot of ways, and we have seen it change a bunch. I'm glad to hear. It doesn't sound like it has turned you off completely to the game, but there is a bit of that, is what I'm hearing. Is that fair?
yeah. That's fair. I think I get asked this question all the time. I was fortunate enough to make it on the highest level available. And I get asked by parents a lot, would you let your child play? And I said, well, no, I'm not going to let my child play because I had two girls, so they're not playing football. but I say that as a joke, but honestly, it's a hard decision, I think, for parents nowadays to decide, do you want your children to play football? Well, if you're going to play football, I think if I had a child, I would make them aware of the possibilities of the injuries that you can get. I mean, I when I was a player, I never really had any surgery. I got hurt, but I never really had any surgery. Since I've been out of football, I think at the last count, I had 13 surgeries since I've
Wow.
left the game. And that's really all since I turned 60 years old. So it will break you down when you're later on in life. I will say that. And I've been very fortunate. I've remained pretty fit. I've got some problems, with my brain as a result of football. It's just you have to recognize that that's going to be part of it. And so if my child came to me, if I had a son and he said, I really want to play football, Dad, I would probably say, okay, I got to make you aware of this is what it is, and I'm going to leave it up to you to make that decision. That would be up to you, but you need to be aware that this is the possibilities that you can face later down the road.
So it sounds like you would not advise for or against. It's just more the information piece that's the most important part. Is that fair?
I think so. I think every situation's different, Tim. I think as a parent, I think you have to decide what you want for your child. And I certainly understand mothers, particularly out there, that don't want their children playing football. I certainly understand that. I also understand, the mothers out there that say, you get a lot of skill from playing the game of football. Not only skill, life skills you gain a lot. So it's a balance, I think, and I think you have to decide um, as a parent. I mean, how you want your child, to grow up. I mean, pretty much. I mean, I think that is the good and the bad of the game. I think I don't think there's any game that can teach you more life skills than football can, quite honestly. But I also think there's no game out there that can get you more injured other than maybe rugby, where they play without pads. But, I think you have to decide. And, again, if it was my child, I just have to tell them, I mean, you know, this is what it is. It's going to be up to you now. Do you really want to do that? And, I love the game of football. I still watch it all the time. It's taken its effect on me somewhat, but I still love to watch it. I still love the life skills that it taught me, and I don't know that there's any game again out there that can teach you that.
If you had known what you know now then, before you really started your football career, would you have approached it any differently than you ended up?
Whoa, that's a tough question. That's a loaded question. I don't know, Tim. I've been, luckily I never had to face that because I started playing at 6 years old,
Hmm.
and I went from 6 to about 30. That's a lot of hits and a lot of years there. But again, I don't, for what the game has taught me versus what the game has done to me. Um, I think that's hard. I mean, obviously, the easy answer would be say, "Oh no, I wouldn't have played," but then I wouldn't have accumulated, some of the wonderful things that have happened in my life had I not played. So it's a trade off. I think it is. I think it's a trade off either way. But am I thankful that I played football? Absolutely. I am absolutely thankful that I played football. Am I happy that it's caused me a lot of pain and injury? No, I'm not happy about that. But that comes with the territory, and again, that goes back to if your child wants to play, I think that's the way you have to approach it.
One of the reasons why I love this format, Rick, is that we don't have a clock on us. We don't have to hit a break in a minute or so. You've been there. You did the radio for a lot of years as well.
Yeah,
You can have more nuanced conversations like this, as
yeah.
opposed to. I think my natural question from what you just said is: do you feel like most players from your era, or most guys who played football at the highest level, are kind of with you that there are some mixed feelings about the relationship with the game of football when you're talking to other former teammates or former players out there?
Yes, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of mixed feelings about it. I mean, there's some guys out there that wouldn't think twice about going back and playing today, but and these are guys that have been damaged too, um, it's a tough question. Football to me, it teaches you more about life than any sport does. I mean, because if you can train at that level, at the highest level of the game, and be able to play that game, um, you're pretty darn good. I mean, you're not that you're good as I'm talking. I'm not talking about skilled. I'm talking about you're mentally pretty good, and I think that's what. I guess if I had to say one thing, you know, minus the, you know, minus the two shoulder surgeries, minus the two wrist surgeries, minus the, partial knee replacement, minus the head injuries, I think I would say the life skill has really, done more for me, throughout my life from being able to attain what I did from playing football. I just wish that it didn't come with all the physical problems that it did.
Sure. I totally understand where you're coming from on that one. Just want to let you know, Hope on the live stream here says, "Yay, glad to see Rick." And Roger is with you. Says the Raiders were my team and still are. So he didn't have the Patriots
Well,
experience that you
well,
had there.
it's funny. Now that I've been out of football so long now that, of course, I pull for the Patriots, and I try to go back to Foxborough to Gillette to see a game every year, particularly when we have alumni weekend, because I get to see a lot of my old friends and teammates. But Roger, I pull for the Raiders still to this day. I want you to know. And now, since Josh McDaniel's the head coach, I really pull for the Raiders again.
Got the combo there from the Patriots background for
Right.
sure. You were talking about the what you learned from football as a parent of 9 and 7-year-old boys. Now, I'm a big proponent of them playing a bunch of team sports and
Hmm.
having that experience for sure. I think other parents out there, you mentioned them deciding if their child does want to play football. Is there a specific age that you would recommend them getting into it? I've heard all kinds of things, kind of all over the spectrum.
Well, I think that one of the things that I kind of looked at this a couple of years ago, Tim, when I got started having some issues with football, my brain issues that I've had. And I started looking at it, and I think probably the safest age to start playing tackle football is somewhere between 14 and 16, I think. I think it's great to play flag football, when they're that age, when you're your kid's age. I think flag football is great. I mean, I think
Started them at 5, Rick. They're
that's
all
awesome.
over it. They love it.
No, I think it's great. I have no issue with that. I think you run into a problem when you've got these kids smacking heads when they're, in their very, very young years, because the old doctor in me comes out too when I think about the repetitive hits and those type of things, particularly because your skull's not even formed yet. I mean, completely, your brain hasn't even formed yet. So my mother tells me to this day, she says, I need to apologize to you. And I said, well, what are you apologizing to me for, Mom? She said, well, because I let you play football so young. And I said, well, Mom, that's not, that's no big deal. I said, I wanted to play. But I think, they didn't know these things back then, and I think they found out through the years that it's the repetitive hits and also the major hits that are the biggest problem with football. As I look back on, I think what caused mine. I mean, I went through um, six. This is what they told me. They told me I had six major concussions and six minor concussions and three major concussions while I was in the NFL, and Lord knows how many I had, in college or in high school. But I go back and I remember telling one of our trainers when I went back to New England one time, they said, "Well, that's what you had on your records." And I said, "Well, how come nobody ever told me about that?"
Mm.
I mean, back then, I mean, you got a concussion, you just kind of went back in. It was just what you did, and it, and again, I don't know. Was the NFL concealing that? I have no idea. I do know one thing. I never forget. I had a terrible concussion against the Dolphins one time, and the next week, of course, we didn't miss games with concussions back then, Tim. So the next week, I went in to see our trainer, and I was getting treatment, and I was still kind of slow to respond with my head, and some of the things I felt like every time he talked to me, I was like 2 and 3 seconds behind what he was saying. So I kind of before I could even respond, I had to kind of piece together. But he said, "We're going to put you in a different helmet this week." And I said, "Well, you going to take me out of the Rydell helmet?" He said, "Yeah, we're going to put you in a bike helmet." And I said, "Well, why are you doing that?" He said, "Well, it's a safer helmet." I said, "Well, then why the hell did you put me in it to begin with?" So, it's just, but back then the NFL had a contract with Rydell, with the Rydell helmet. So I'll never forget when they put me in the bike helmet, which really was a better helmet, quite honestly, and padding and all. I'll never forget. We had to tape over the bike
Mm.
logo on the helmet, and it was almost like they had written Rydell, the trademark for Rydell on it. But I could go back and I could tell you so many stories like that. But I just don't understand. I think if NFL's guilty of anything, they're guilty of that. That if they had a contract, they were trying to live up to their contract, even though their helmets were inferior.
Wow, what a crazy story that is.
It's a crazy story.
I mean, I get it, right? We all understand the financial implications of professional sports and the importance of it, but that is that is brutal. And Roger,
You can go back now, Tim. I mean, go back to my day and look at just research some of the players now and see the problems that they're experiencing from and I definitely think it had a lot to do with um, the helmets that we had on. I don't think there was any doubt that there was some inferiority to those helmets. And I honestly, I'd probably have a lot more respect for the NFL if they would just come out and admit it. Just admit it. I mean, it's okay. I mean, just you've got the concussion lawsuit, And I understand there's a lot of players that are still fighting the NFL, and they'll fight them for years and years. And just be honest, be upfront about it, and I'd have a lot more respect if they did, for the league itself. Do I love football? I love the NFL. I love to watch it. Do I respect, some of the decisions that they made? Not at all. I think a lot of the decisions that they make um, are a little shady. Let me put it that way.